Am I the asshole? I went on vacation with my friend and her family, and they kicked me out. I got my own room and stayed. I am in college and my roommate from last year, Meg, whose family is really rich, said she could bring a friend on vacation. It was kinda awkward. I was her third choice, but her family vetoed the first two because they didn't want her bringing a boy or this other female friend of hers they disliked. Her parents bought my plane ticket and booked the resort, which I was very grateful for, and I saved a lot of money up so I could make sure I buy my own food and activities when I'm there, and treat her family to a dinner as a thank you for the ticket. But when the trip started, it was just bad. It was her, me, her mother, her father, two of her father's friends, and her three brothers going. On the flight, they all got first class and got me a economy seat. But I didn't say anything because why argue about a free ticket? The first night they went to a grocery, it turns out they wanted to cook at the resort kitchen for the whole trip. And by they wanted to cook, it actually turned out that they wanted me and Meg to cook. I wasn't warned about this, but it turns out Meg's family is so traditional that they see cooking as a women's job. And her mom had just had hand surgery. So it was me and Meg cooking every meal for 6 men and her mom. And I can't cook well. I know a couple staple meals to feed myself, but since I rarely eat meat, I don't know how to cook it. I'm also okay at cooking for 1 or 2, but have no practice cooking for a group of 9. I screwed it up, undercooked chicken, and overcooked some steak, and her dad was angry with me. I got short with him and told him that if he knew how to do better he could pitch in instead of standing around criticizing. But he got furious and said he was on his vacation. I said that I was trying to have a vacation too, or did they invite me to be an unpaid domestic servant? Meg's parents and dad's friends got angry I said that and started yelling at me. The argument escalated. I sarcastically called myself the help. His dad snapped at me and told me to get out of their suite and go home. Didn't say shit about how he expected me to do that. I left and called the airline with my ticket, and asked them if they could do anything to prevent anyone else from modifying or canceling my ticket. They let me set a passcode, and no changes could be made to the flight without it. Then I went to the resort desk to ask about rooms, saying I was stranded unexpectedly. They actually did have some affordable rooms available because of a weekday discount. So I got housing and still had money left over for touristy stuff. I went sightseeing and relaxed on the beach for 3 days, until Meg's parents ran into me. They were taking a sunset walk and did a double take seeing me on the beach. They said they thought I was going home, and I said I decided to stay. They were angry because they saw me staying and using the return flight as having deceived them into thinking I couldn't afford a vacation, and using them for flights when I could actually afford things. Am I the asshole for staying on that vacation and using the flight home? Not the asshole. This is no way to treat the friend of your child. Also, it is no was to treat your child WTF, your poor friend. I feel really bad for poor Meg. She's still left cooking for all those people, but now she has to do it alone. She really should have warned OP that they'd be put in this position though. Not the asshole. Yeah, I don't know what to feel about her right now. I feel kinda bad for her if she is stick cooking 3 meals a day for 8 people alone. Despite them all being loaded enough to go eat out all the time. But I also feel kinda upset at her because if you know your family sees cooking as women's work only and you're inviting a woman around your family. It's not that hard to say, just so you know, part of this trip will be cooking 3 meals a day for a group of 9. I know it's old-fashioned, but it's what my family expects of women, and give me a chance to say okay, thanks for the invite, but no thanks. You're right. Meg wasn't honest with you that you were expected to work for free. It wasn't a holiday. They were just flying out free staff. You did great. Protecting your ticket and organizing rooms. Also, what was with their comment? They thought you were poor. That meant they thought they could treat you like dirt? Not the asshole. Makes you wonder if the other gal they didn't like turned them down. And now we know why they didn't want Meg to bring a male friend. They probably know they couldn't bully the other friend into cooking and cleaning, which is why they didn't ask her. Hey, I'm a man and I can do cooking if it means a free vacation. But I want to be warned first, and if I do all meals someone else does the cleaning part. Duh. Cooking 3 meals a day for 9 people is a full-time job. There isn't room for vacation there, you'd rarely leave the kitchen. Eggs, every meal would be eggs. No. Peanut butter sandwiches, or cheese sandwiches, not grilled L. Especially if there's no help with prep and cleanup. Oh, I know there are plenty of men who can cook and clean, but in this traditional family, they wouldn't approve of such a guy. Real men leave their wives/daughters to handle those sorts of things. It's funny because my dad was born in the 1920s, and was as traditional as they come. But when we were on vacation he always cooked, and made a point of highlighting how it was my mom's vacation from being a homemaker. The meals were simple, and very much in the style that he learned as a kid as a sheep rancher before he went to college. Lots of grilling for dinner and griddle cakes for breakfast. Traditional doesn't have to mean self-centered and misogynistic. But with certain types it definitely becomes code for misogyny. And notice how the brothers are being served and not having to do any work. My mother had a similar attitude with me and my brother. I remember one Thanksgiving she wanted to go to the Macy's parade, we lived in the NYC area, and then go out to dinner at a restaurant. My brother threw a hissy over it being not traditional. This was back in people-pleasing days, so I was up at 6 a.m. so my mother could enjoy the parade for once in her life. My dad and then her boyfriend would take the kids to get us out of her way. And my brother had to have his traditional ass dragged out of bed at 1 p.m. so he'd be dressed and awake for dinner. No help with cleanup and I had to do all of the cleaning the day before, even though I had a paper to write. Mr. Traditional skipped classes, got high and ate a hero in his car. You deceived us by thinking you couldn't afford vacation. Dude, that's so weird because I don't remember filling out an income application before being invited by you on this trip. Significant other RRY trying to strand me in the middle of nowhere didn't work out for you like you wanted. They're upset because OP managed to actually work things out by staying, enjoying her stay and not having to serve them. How dare you not have to come crawling back to us? Seriously, they thought she was poor, so what was their game plan? Stranding her in an unfamiliar place, is this out of the country? Without money, to do what? Try to get someone back home to front her the money she doesn't have for a flight home? Hitchhike? Be lost? Homeless? There is no good outcome. They literally didn't care what happened to you, OP, and your friend just let them abandon you without even reaching out to you over the last 3 goddamn days. Not the asshole. So unequivocally not the asshole. They want her to be so poor so she could not do anything but continue to be a free domestic servant to them. Thank you for typing what my soul was screaming also for op, not the asshole. What I cannot afford is being duped into doing a job I am not qualified to do, never agreed to, and do not enjoy for the low cost of coach airfare. Why can't you afford to actually hire a chef to take with you on vacation? Are you poor? Edit, omit word. Can't help but notice that only the daughter invited a friend, not any of her brothers, and she couldn't bring a guy. Mom was injured so they knew they would need more help. Her joke about the help was dead on. OP should have said, well, now we're even since you deceived me into thinking this was a vacation, when you just wanted a domestic servant. Also, good on OP for saving money for this trip in case something like this happen. No AITA. OP, I don't want to freak you out, but this is trafficking. Not all people who are trafficked work as prostitutes. You can be trafficked for labor as well. And seeing as they were not paying you for this labor and had no contract in place, as well as threatening you if you refuse to obey, you've got a perfect scenario of a trafficking situation. I'm glad they didn't confiscate your belongings. Maybe their next victim won't be so lucky. I understand if you don't want to report this to the police. After all, your friend may be charged as well. Domestic labor trafficking is actually drastically more common than sex trafficking. Only so many people will go to a prostitute, but everyone goes out to eat / goes out to places that need to be cleaned. It's really disturbing to stop and consider if the people making your takeout are being paid fairly, if at all, or if they are being threatened somehow. Sex trafficking is literally the least common form of labor trafficking, massively dwarfed by domestic / agricultural / factory work, but it's the only one anyone seems to worry about. Moral panic about sex trafficking is a good excuse to criminalize and target sex workers. Plus, people might have to think about how they are complicit and benefit from domestic, service, and agricultural labor trafficking, and oh boy, that sounds really uncomfortable and inconvenient. Much easier to focus on sex trafficking, where people can enjoy a good, uncomplicated moral crusade without changing any of their own behavior. This. Yelling at OP because we thought you were poor and couldn't afford this is very specifically saying we thought you were so poor you would have no alternative, so would be trapped doing what we want. And you were just using us as another attempt to control OP using guilt when money failed. And some projection to boot. Powerless is the key to their scheme. It's very fortunate that you A. stood up to them, B. had your own money. This. The fam definitely invited OP as unpaid help, seeing how they reacted to her standing up for herself, back-talking, like really? And upon seeing her still present after being dismissed. Unfuck those pretentious, patriarchal asshats. Glad you salvaged the trip and had an actual vacation, OP not the asshole. Yo oh oh oh. Now that you pointed it out, that makes scenes. Yo yo oh 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 ooh, they are using the friend to get captives, omg. I would 1000% report this to the police. As you said, their next victim might not be so lucky. This is an excellent point. You should file a report. There are organizations that can advise you on how to proceed. Let me add, it sounds like you were invited on a free trip. You did not claim to be poor or ask for a free ticket. That's an odd thing for them to say. A free trip that was not first class like theirs. Red flag number 2. Also curious as to why dad has 2 male friends on the trip. Just from the info I could get from the story, I suspect they are some type of exclusive brethren, not eating any food in public. Females get no respect, man is king. Just a thought. Person shrugging, person shrugging, person shrugging, person shrugging. Wow. Thank you for your comment. I never realized this would be a form trafficking. The police probably couldn't do anything because OP was free to leave at any time, and in fact, was ordered to, whereas most people who are trafficked are basically enslaved, often with their belongings stolen, as you noted, and not allowed to leave. So this may be trafficking in spirit, but not in legal terms. Maybe, but even if nothing comes of this one, having a paper trail in case something unfortunate happens to a future friend would not be a bad idea. I would not be surprised if they escalated the next time to guarantee their free maid stayed. Plus, assuming OP isn't like living in the same small town with this family where they could make trouble for her or something, I would not shed a tear for these people having to sit and answer some awkward questions with the State Department. Hopefully make them think twice next time. I know you're mad at her, and have every right not to want to see her for a while. But it would be really funny if you invited her to stay WU so they had no one left to cook for them. I'm assuming she's still figuring out the world, and grew up in a terrible family. At least you've set a good example for her. That was my thought too. Take my free award for visibility smile, also to add judgment, not the asshole obviously. Seeing as the probably finance other aspect of her life, I don't think that will end well for her. I actually think OP should invite Meg on a trip with OP's family instead. Not to pull the same thing back at her, but to show her what a real vacation is like, and, honestly, another example of a healthier family dynamic. Poor Meg had grown up in a very unhealthy family dynamic. She needs a lot of help, to be honest. Now you know why they didn't want a male friend to come, and I bet the other girlfriend she asked knew what Meg's family is like. Or the other female friend is also wealthy and therefore not an ideal target. OP really shocked them, didn't she? Clapping hands. Maybe she's been gaslit so long she doesn't realize how weird or inappropriate their behavior is. Unfortunately, it's likely this. Please try to reach out and help your friend OP, she needs it. OP, I don't want to freak you out, but this is trafficking. Not all people who are trafficked work as prostitutes. You can be trafficked for labor as well. And seeing as they were not paying you for this labor and had no contract in place, as well as threatening you if you refuse to obey, you've got a perfect scenario of a trafficking situation. I'm glad they didn't confiscate your belongings. Maybe their next victim won't be so lucky. I understand if you don't want to report this to the police. After all, your friend may be charged as well. If she was a true friend, she wouldn't have let you fly in economy on your own. She either would have pushed for you to be in first class or joined you in economy. She also would have given you a heads up about her family and their expectations. Because you're absolutely right, you were being treated more like an unpaid employee than a guest. It sounds as though Meg's family were intentionally deceptive and thought that you had such limited resources you'd be stuck there to do what they wanted. That's why they refused the daughter's guy friend, couldn't make him cook. The other girlfriend was probably in their socioeconomic group and couldn't be suckered into servitude in the guise of gratitude. Out of curiosity, did Meg reach out to you in those 3 days? It's not about them being able to afford to eat out. It's about power and showing her where she belongs. As a woman, you need to cater to the men. They showed you how they treat and think of someone who they do not deem an equal. Just a group of garbage humans. I hope you enjoyed your trip, despite those turds. Meg probably is used to doing it, so it doesn't seem weird for her. She has probably grown up around women doing all of the cooking. The fact that the dad never helped blows my mind. I'm sorry. Meg is no good. She needs to be able to set her own boundaries with her parents or learn to not bring a friend into this mess. I was a Meg. You enjoy your trip. Those people are miserable and controlling. If you can't have a good time in a paradise place, then you have problems. You were enjoying your lemonade while they still had lemons. They got jealous and angry. Do not feel bad for Meg. She's in the same position she would have been if she'd gotten to bring her first choice of a boy along, right? Since cooking is women's work? I mean, feel bad for how messed up in the head she must be from being raised in that family, but that should be the extent of it. It's worth noting, Meg grew up with these people and may not know it's that unusual. It can be really hard to realize that the way you've spent your entire life living is so weird people would expect a warning about it. Now we know why it took 3 tries to find a yes. The other 2 knew, and weren't going to be their staff for a ticket in second class. I'm curious what Meg said when her family was blowing up at you, or was she silent? This is probably the real reason why Tay didn't want her to invite a guy, ha. He couldn't be expected to know how to cook. Clever handling with the ticket, making it safe from manipulating. Not the asshole. I have to wonder if Meg is so used to being treated like this that she assumes that's how every woman should be treated. If this type of behavior is normal for how she grew up, then she may not realize it's something to warn OP about. It definitely explains why they vetoed her male friend coming along. They couldn't have pulled the women belong in the kitchen nonsense on him. My guess is also that the second choice was familiar with her family and has refused in the past to play along. Now we know why the parents vetoed the first 2. The guy obviously was not a cook and clean the house candidate, and they probably knew the first female candidate wasn't a pushover either. Had a friend in middle school whose parents were like this. When we were 13, my friend invited me to go to the mall with them, and before we left their house to go, her dad pulled me aside to tell me it would be appropriate to buy his wife lunch for letting me go with them. I had $20 that my mom gave me for my lunch and to maybe buy one cheaper item, so I panicked a little inside. Thankfully my friend stepped in and chewed her dad out and told me not to worry about it. What an awkward day. Who the fuck expects a 13-year-old to buy an adult lunch? Seriously, that dude is a huge asshole. A parasite. This happened to me as a kid. A friend's parents took me to a theme park about an hour and a half from home. Her mom asked my mom if they could take me with them. My mom could only give me a very small amount to cover something to eat, and she put snacks to share in my bag. We got in line and her dad asked me for my money to buy my ticket. I told him I only had $8. He was pissed and left my friend and her mom there to drive me home. It's a good thing I had been pre-programmed to never express negative emotions. I can't imagine how he'd have acted if I cried. When we got back, he lit into my mom for not sending enough to cover my ticket. Her parents were both doctors. Our whole rundown 1BR apparentment would have fit in their LR and kitchen. They had been to my house. But he still brought an 8-yo home and then berated my mother until she cried. I don't know what she did to make it happen, as our utilities were shut off on the regular and being allowed to buy a bag of chips was a really big fucking deal, but 2 weeks later she invited the same friend to go to the same theme park. My mom paid for her ticket. I'm guessing my friend had the money, but my mom never asked. My mom was complete crap a lot of the time. There was parentifaction and neglect, but sometimes she got things right, even if it was only to make a point to someone else. If that is so disgusting, I'm so sorry that happened to you. If you invite someone to movies or a theme park or anywhere with a cost attached, then the implication is you're a guest and will be paid for. Otherwise they should have said so up front. My jaw drops thinking that he chose to drive you home and humiliate you like that when he could have easily afforded it. Wah! Telling a 13-year-old to buy you lunch? Is that a bad sense of humor, or was he just that much of a shitlord? Just an asshole. My friend and her sisters had to earn stuff like new school clothes, and every single penny was scrutinized. They had a 2-floor house, in-ground pool, new wood floors, fairly new kitchen remodel when I met them, so I certainly wouldn't say they were poor either. Another girl that was on our volleyball team stayed with her for a few days one summer to get rides to practice, and they made the guest earn her keep too. She had to clean up after everyone after meals and stuff. I always felt really bad for my friend since that was just her daily life. This is no way to treat any human being. It's no way to treat anyone. Not the asshole, that is literally insane. Who takes someone to another city/state/country and then just abandons them there? Abandons them there? I realize you are a young adult, and obviously more than capable of handling yourself, but if you were my child, that family would be getting a piece of my mind. If they harass you again, complain to security. Edit, thank you for the award, it's my first one. Smile. The more money you get, the lower your empathy gets. Not necessarily, clearly the case for this family. Numerous studies actually indicate otherwise, that wealth can actually harm empathy and impulse control. The money empathy gap, I think the New Yorker did an article about it, very interesting. Edit, NIMAG, and from 2012 but still interesting. https://nimag.com/news/features/moneybrain 2012/7/. Several studies have shown that wealth may be at odds with empathy and compassion. Research published in the journal Psychological Science found that people of lower economic status were better at reading others' facial expressions, an important marker of empathy, than wealthier people. https://greatergood.berkeley.edu/article/item/how_money_changes_the_way_think_and_feel. Not universally but definitely regularly. You don't justify hoarding wealth in a world with poverty on the scale we're experiencing without having low empathy or willful ignorance. I read another comment about being trafficked. You can be trafficked for labor. Fucking scary. Absolutely a worry going outside of your comfort area. The traffickers can get away with this by stealing your passport/ID and promising to give it back when you buy it from them. Then they put you to work doing whatever and take all the money you earn, for rent, food, and if you're unlucky, drugs, because they get you hooked on it to deal, except a few dollars to give you the illusion you are going to be able to buy it back one day. It's horrific. Someone who expects you to give in and be their free live-in cook/housekeeper because they assumed you can't get back on your own and are reliant on their charity. If you like the video, hit that subscribe button for more content. I post every day and I'll see you next time with more stories.